day. Rob, look after this dog because he's eating everything.
Okay. It looks like we are live on
Okay,
Facebook. If you're live
there
on
we go.
Facebook, you can see it in the Facebook group only. So, welcome back, everybody, to another podcast, the first of this incredible coming year that probably most people has been expecting it more than ever has been expecting a new year. And Who Am I is a group that it's all about values. Is it's looking for people's enhancement of their own perspectives. That's why we invite people that are so valuable to us. We can listen to powerful stories, empowering stories, so people can see that they also carry values and tools to empower others. Because many people just are conditioned to believe that others have the values, not themselves. So I think everybody has a great story to tell, but not everybody knows how to say it. So I bring people that have already found a way to tell their story in a powerful way, like Lisa today with us. How are you doing, Lisa, today?
I'm fine, thank you. All good, yeah.
Thank you for being here. Thank you for this last minute call that we had with you. I just jumped in because I had a cancellation. So you jumped right in. You know your story like this. That's what I
Yeah.
like about you. And I'm quite impressed about your story. But let's start with you. Tell me about you. Where do you live? Where you're from?
Okay, so I live in Staffordshire in the United Kingdom. So I'm in the central of the United Kingdom, but I live out in the countryside. So I'm not in the city, I'm in the country. So I'm surrounded by fields. It's all green. It's very flat. There's lots of cows, lots of sheep. It's nice and fresh. There's lots of walks, which is a really good thing at the moment because we're all here now on permanent lockdown. So we can't go anywhere. All we can do, we're only allowed to go out to exercise at the moment and to go shopping or to go to work unless you can work from home. So it's a great place to live while we're in this situation.
Have you always lived in the same place?
No. So I come from the travelling community. So I was born in a trailer, in a caravan, in the middle of what we call the Licky Hills, which is like a woodland. Quite a while ago now, because I'm 55, but I was born there. And then I travelled all around the country and around Europe as part of what I did, part of the way I lived. And I did that. Let me just turn this light off 1 second.
Yes.
Too many lights. I can see in the side of my eye. Coming from the travelling community, so that meant that I was in a situation where I didn't actually have a traditional schooling. So I didn't go to a traditional school, and I was in a situation where I couldn't read and write till the age of 28 when I went to college. So what happened was I started to work when I was about 14. I ended up with a full-time job, working full-time. And then I ended up in a relationship that wasn't a good relationship, and I ended up having a small child, leaving my own community. And then I got to the age of 28 and things were really, really bad. And I went to college and learned to read and write, which was absolutely revolutionary for me because I just got along with what I could do without being able to read and write. I was quite numerate, good with money, good with numbers, but couldn't read and I always used to say I forgot my glasses if I needed anything filling out because I couldn't read it. So I just used to blag it. And then I ended up, my story is about, I met a girl on a bus, and the girl on the bus was going to college, and she'd got a small child and I'd got a small child. And she said, when we get to college, I'm going to college, she said, they'll pay for the nursery and they'll pay for your lunch and they'll pay for your travel. Do you fancy it? Well, I didn't even know what a college was. And I thought, well, nursery, lunch, I'm in for this. So I went with her. And I went to college, and over a 6-week period, I learned to read and write. And the college tutor said to me, you need to go to college and get some qualifications because you'd be really good. You could be an academic. So I ended up doing the 6-week course, and before you know it, I was enrolled in a college course. I did a 12-month program where I did what we call an access course in the UK, so it's like your higher quals, and my GCSEs English and Maths. And then after that year, I ended up going to university and I did a science degree and I became a science teacher. So I taught primary, secondary, and then I went to teach in further education. So college was 16 students over the age of 16 up until adults. And that's what I ended up doing. And I've now got a master's degree. So from the age of 28, when I had nothing, all of a sudden, I ended up doing my basic qualifications, a degree, and a master's degree, along with all the other things you do when you're part of a learning process. And I became an academic and I became a professional educator.
Wow, that's very impressive. I never heard such a story like that. So you're saying did I hear right? You didn't know how to read and write until 28 years old?
Yeah, so I didn't read and write till I was 28, yeah.
But tell me what happened since you were born, you said you were born in a trailer. What was that story like?
Yeah, well, we used just to travel around. So I was born in a trailer and we were Romanies. So we used to travel around and stop, and we were horse traders. So buying and selling horses, that's what our trade was. And then, well, lots of things happened in our family. My story, you couldn't make it up. There was that many things that went on in my story because my mother was an opioid addict. So what happened was, me and my mum ended up going off together because she'd got this serious addiction and it didn't fit in with the family. And I ended up having to go to work to support my mum because my mum used to do things illegal. That's what she did to get by. She did whatever she could to get by, to get money to pay for her habit. So I ended up then supporting my mum. That's what I did. And I became a shellfish merchant. So I used to sell shellfish. That's what I did. Crabs, lobsters, cockles, mussels, well, all that kind of thing. And I did that for about 14 years. I was a shellfish merchant. I used to work the markets. That's what I did. So that's what I'm saying, I could buy and sell things all day long, but I couldn't read and write. But I didn't need to read and write because it just wasn't needed. It's just something that I didn't really, I could get by. I could read a sign. I knew what a sign was and what was going on, but I couldn't read a book or read a newspaper or anything like that.
Did your family ever have like legal issues because you didn't go to school?
No, because it was a case of it's always a case of homeschooling. I think when I was very small, I do remember going to a couple of primary schools. Every now and again, you'd go for a day here and a day there. But not a lot happened. It's not like it is today. But even today, travelling community don't always send their children to school. That's the way it goes. It's part of, I suppose, you self-exclude within that community, preventing your children from entering an education system. But then you learn so many other different things
Yes.
that you might say are quite valuable. But I don't know where I'd have been now if I'd have had the opportunities a lot earlier.
I think this is exactly what's meant for you. We all carry probably a destiny, an own purpose, a mission. And I think that everything that happens the way it happens in your youth is what's going to trigger all you have to become, right?
Yeah.
Most people stay with what they get during those years, but now it's really up to you after a certain time in life, what you do with your life, right? I think you became an adult very early in life, right? You had to take care of your mother as well. You had to do, you were raised to start working, right?
Absolutely. I've always worked. So from when I was small, I can remember I used to carry the water. I used to do the washing, hand washing. I used to cook outside. I remember doing all of that. So I always worked all my life. It was just something that I did. I always worked. It was just a natural thing for me to do. But I didn't actually have what we would call professional status. I didn't know anything about school or college when I went to the college, I didn't know what a college was. I'd never heard of a college course. It's just not something that I'd ever discussed. So it was like a brand new world to me. And then I just got the thirst to learn, and I wanted to learn more. And I was really good at learning, really good. Once I started to read and I started to write, I used to spell things wrong, and I still do now, but I just got a thirst for the knowledge, thirst for it. And then I became an academic. And became an academic and worked my way all the way up from a teacher all the way up to a principal in a college. And I worked my way up, and then I got in that position where I'd got professional status. I was earning a really good salary. And you started the conversation off with values. And I got to the position where the values of the organisation did not line up with my values, and I wasn't living my truth. And what happened was I was working 60 hours a week, maybe even more than that at some stage, 60 hours a week. And I ended up in a position where I suffered a burnout. So I crashed and burnt. And people say that they've burnt out, but I actually suffered a breakdown. A burnout, a real burnout is, and you'll know this, but a burnout is it's a mental condition. So I ended up where I couldn't sleep. I was tossing and turning all night. I couldn't think straight. I suffered with paranoia. I thought people were talking about me all the time. And you know what? It got to a point where I really wished I'd never, ever gone on my journey. I thought I was better off when I just used to work the markets and I didn't know anything, because it got to a position where I just the cheese fell off my cracker. I completely lost it and I had a total breakdown. And that was really for me the beginning of my journey for living my truth, which is what I'm doing now.
So if you have to use your memory along with your emotions and look back in your life, how would you describe your youth years? Were you a happy child? Were you suffering? You
No, I was a happy child. I was quite savvy. Very, very streetwise. I did have a lot of responsibility and there was a lot of concern. I was concerned and I did worry, but I never, even though I did probably have times of anxiety, I never suffered with my mental health until I'd gone through it, become an adult and I got professional status. So when I was younger, I was more resilient as a youth than I was as an adult. So when I look back at it now, I say, yeah, some of the things that I went through were quite hard years, quite difficult. I never went hungry. We weren't really poor. I never really had nothing. Do you know what I mean? Because I used to work and I used to make sure we had. But it didn't affect me until I look back at it now. So none of it affected me. And then when I got to a position where I'm a grown up and I'm, I've got a house, I've got money, I've got a really good job, and I crashed and burnt, I thought, gosh, I've been through stuff as bad as this before, but it didn't impact me as much as this has. And that started me off on the idea of around actually your work-life balance is something that if you don't keep it in check and you don't keep considering putting yourself first, causes massive issues with your mental wellness, massive issues.
Yeah, that's exactly what triggered what you are today. Actually, I think that's the right way that things had to happen in your life for you to trigger something. Sometimes we don't reach our full potential until we touch rock bottom, right? What would you say were challenges that you had since you were a young person? What kind of challenges you faced that you had to resolve, or everything was done for you when you were a child?
No, what everything, what do you mean?
Do
Everything
you have
was
any
done.
specific challenges when you were a kid? You remember, for example, they were teaching you about lack, or teaching you that you were not good enough, or things like that. You remember?
No, I think when we was children, you see, I mean, everybody used to muck in. Everybody used to muck in, and you all did. There was a lot of us, so we all did what, everybody used to muck in. But there was a real sense of community and a real sense of of family and love, and never felt unloved. But it was hard. It was hard. And and you'd wake up one day and you would be shifting. That's what you call it when you moved on. So you'd be settled and then you'd be shifting and you'd move to the next place. So you were always moving all the time. But I never felt unstable, or I don't remember feeling unhappy, but I do remember when I look back now it's really difficult to say. I don't remember it, but I can
Feel it.
I can visualize sometimes being times of anxiety. So when I was worried about my mother, I used to be quite worried about her all the time because she'd often pass out and you'd have to get her up and all that kind of stuff. So that was a feeling of anxiety. But I got over that because as I got older, she got more able to cope with things herself. And I, you know, she never got clean, and she's died now. She didn't get clean, but she was more aware, and I could talk to her more as an adult. So I came through that. So I suppose I managed. I don't really remember having that real maternal. Like I say, I feel as if I was loved, but I don't feel as if I had that maternal parenting. I wasn't really parented. You know, there wasn't a real. There
Is
wasn't
your mom still
parenting.
around?
No, she's died. She's died. Yeah.
Was your dad around?
No, he's died as well. He's died. They're both gone. I'm an orphan now, but then I am 55. Yeah, he's died. No, he couldn't cope with her, so that's why me and her had to leave, because he couldn't cope with the situation. Because her addiction was more important than anything else.
But are you mentally in peace with her?
Um, I don't suppose I am. No, I don't suppose I am. I like the idea to say that I am, but I don't suppose I am actually. No.
Because you're happy with who you are today, right?
Yeah, I'm
What
happy
you
with
do with
who.
people, right? So you know you owe that to your mother for like the way exactly she raised you, with everything she gave
Oh,
you and everything she
absolutely.
didn't
Yeah.
give you. Everything she gave you and everything she didn't give you is because it was for you to meant to do this, what you're doing now, for you and for others.
Yeah,
I think it was
absolutely.
exactly what she had to do. That was her mission, to put you through this, because otherwise you wouldn't come up with this fire from within that I really see
Yeah.
you. Just by looking at you from here, I see you have some fire within.
Yeah, I think you're
Smoke.
right. I think you are right because it's not until you've burnt out and then you put yourself back together that you start to live your truth. It's very difficult to explain to people what it's like to actually live your truth. I can now talk to you on here about anything, and I have no embarrassment. I'm not uncomfortable. I'm not worried. I'm not concerned. I can say exactly what I've got to say, and I feel really free and enlightened. And I feel that that's my right to be able to do that. And my core values, which are the principles of my decision making, are honesty, meaning I'm going to be honest with everybody else and myself. Integrity, which means I do the right things for the right reasons, even when there's nobody looking. And participation, I participate in things. And I always say, if I'm going to do something, if I say I'm going to do something, I do it. And I just report by exception. So obviously, if something happened and I couldn't do it, then I'd say I can't do it. But apart from that, I always do what I say I'm going to do. And those are my three core values. And what I do is, as I go throughout my daily, whatever I'm doing in the day or in the week, or every now and again, I'll check in with myself. And I think, does what I'm doing line up with my core values? Am I being honest? Am I working with integrity? Am I giving as good as I could give? And if I'm not, I'll stop what I'm doing and think, hold on a minute. And it's always this check and balance, bit of a senses check. And that's what I live by. And I'm comfortable with that, completely comfortable with that.
Well, you understand, you're a real entrepreneur because you understand the value of stories. Like the average, the common of the society, regular people, they think that those bad stories that they have, they don't want to tell them because they feel ashamed, they feel embarrassed, they feel short, and they think they only should share the good things. But a real entrepreneur knows that your goal is in all the struggles you went through and how did you overcome it. That's the value of the story. Nobody wants to hear all the drama that you have, or nobody wants to hear all the money you're making, how good you're doing. They want to know exactly how bad you were and how do you do to get there, right? That's the real value of people want to see. And that's exactly what you're committed to. And I can believe that you're saying I'm committed, because if you went from not knowing how to read and write at 28 and 28, you got all the degrees that you got, that says nothing about just commitment in a person. That you're 100% probably the most committed person I ever seen. And if you can
Yeah, you can,
transmit that to others,
yeah, but you see my commitment, but you don't see it yourself. That's the thing. You see my commitment. I just see that I did what I had to do. And you just
yeah,
do what you've got to do, don't you? And then it's not till you stop and think. And then I think, yeah, well, yeah, wow, I have done really well. I have done really well. And I'm proud of what I've done. And now my mission really is to really support other people to be able to live their truth, to be able to stand up and be their self, and for them to be able to be confident and for them to have a really good self-esteem so they feel good about themselves, and they've also got a really good self-concept where they can see themselves the way other people see them, because often the way you see yourself is not in the best light. And I think that that's a big part of living your truth, having a really good self-esteem and having that really good self-concept, which is really, really important. And then the thing around that is self-management, is being able to manage yourself, to be able to look after your physical, intellectual, emotional and social needs. And I'm really, really, really keen to work with people on their holistic self, for them really to consider themselves as a whole. And because I think the big thing that really rings true with me is the impact of mental wellness, and how people are quite shy to talk about not being mentally well, or to not recognize the fact that you're not always on an even keel. Doesn't mean that everybody has a mental illness, but you're not always mentally well, the same as you're not always physically well. But we don't want to recognize that. And if you look at yourself as a whole, and you look at all the different needs that you've got, and you grow and develop and manage those needs yourself, then I think that goes a long way to helping your mental wellness.
absolutely, 100% aligned with what you say. I think also sometimes you admire people that are so confident, so outgoing, right? But these people are not really like that all the time. But they know when to be that. When they are confident, they're they have absence of fear and all these things when they have to do it. In those moments, the key moments, they know how to apply to themselves. It doesn't mean that they live in the state of confidence, but you have to step up when you have to. I think you're a normal person, but you stepped up above the heights than most people would do, because you have that inner confidence, and that you know when to use it. But otherwise, other than that, sometimes maybe you do have your own fears, your own struggles. We all do, right? People think that you have to be born like that. I think you have to know when to use it to
Yeah.
strive to make it in life.
I
Did you
mean,
have a
confidence is one of those things, isn't it, where I always talk about 4 types of confidence. I talk about professional confidence, personal confidence, emotional confidence, and social confidence. And I think you can be confident in different areas of your life at different times. So if I gave you a set of hiking boots and a backpack and asked you to climb a mountain and you've never climbed one before, you wouldn't be confident, and that's okay. If I asked you to bake a cake and gave you the ingredients and you wouldn't, and you'd never done it, you wouldn't be confident at it. And it's okay not to be confident at all things at all times, but it's being able to draw the confidence at the right time to be able to show up as yourself. That's important for me. And that you can be comfortable with being uncomfortable. Because what we're doing now, for some people, will be extremely uncomfortable because they're not used to it. They're not confident to talk on camera, to talk to somebody they don't really know, to talk on social media. But if you get comfortable with being uncomfortable, even though it is maybe not the best feeling, you're outside your comfort zone, it enables you to be able to stretch and challenge yourself. And when you stretch and challenge yourself, it gives you that opportunity to raise your confidence. And to be able to draw on your confidence, use it as a tool, because your confidence is a tool. You can have it in your back pocket and you can pull it out when you need it. And as you say, some people will know when to show up very confidently, but then also it's being able to prevent yourself from damage if your confidence is knocked. So if people have a dig, or people don't necessarily, if you're not their jam, and you don't come across the way that they would like you to, and they say that can knock your confidence. and being comfortable with being uncomfortable gives you that opportunity to be able to manage that and think, well, you know what, it's okay. That's okay. Not everybody has to like me. Not everybody has to want to be in my, and that's okay. So it's also that feeling of being okay with not being okay as well. So it's being okay with not being the full polished article as well. I think that's really important, to be able to just show up, do what you do, and don't worry about it. And that's living your truth.
Yep, I think we all have like an essence, right? But the key is, like you say, is the mental elasticity that you have to stretch to be something you're not. It's okay to come back to what you are, right? But that
Yeah.
mental flexibility of becoming what you have to become when you have to become it is the whole secret, I think.
Mm.
And, it's exactly as you said, of being comfortable, being uncomfortable. Like in public speaking, you know that not everybody is incredibly confident and but you have to be an actor. So you know what? I'm going to go in front of this audience and just act as I'm a great speaker, right? And just the confidence comes out. You act like you're confident, and you all of a sudden are confident and look confident. And you have to be flexible enough. And there's where you were saying that they knock your confidence out. There's where your self worth plays in, saying that nobody's going to make me accept that I'm not worth it. It's okay. I didn't perform good. It's okay, but not because you're coming to mock me. I'm gonna accept that I'm an idiot or a loser. I'm gonna accept that. I didn't do well there. It's fine, right? And I should be comfortable with that. I said. So now let's go back to a moment here when you were 28 years old. What shifted in your life for you to want to educate yourself? Is something specific happening?
I only meeting the girl on the bus. If I hadn't met the girl on the bus, I'd have still been in the fish market today. So I met the girl on the bus and ended up going to college. And I went to college, and it's because I went to college, that was the thing that gave me the thirst for learning, which gave me the thirst, I got an education. And I started mixing with people that were using a different vocabulary. I started reading books because I studied psychology, biochemistry, sociology, and social policy. And when I went to university, I did a science degree combined with economics and politics. So it was like massive. It was like, a massive whole lot of stuff. Now, when you look at it, things around politics and economics, whether you're educated or not, all have an impact on your life, but they're just not in context because you don't know the words, you don't know about these things in the terms that when you learn about them, but you do actually have them as part of your life. When you start to learn and you're in a learning environment and you're mingling with people that are talking about things and you're having conversations and you're hearing one side of something and another side of something and you're involved in debates, it really does fuel your energy and your capacity to take on information and do something with it. So that really, really was something that I just loved. And I liked getting the qualifications. I liked passing the exams. I liked, applying to go to university. Imagine I was like, so I was 28 when I did my first college course. So I was 28 when I did that. I did that for a year. Then I went to university for 3 years. So that was 29, 31, 32, 33. And by the time I'd got me full-time, I was 35 by the time I'd started teaching and a full-time teacher. Do you know what I mean? That, and then ended up as a full-time teacher. So I'd never been in a position where I'd got a full-time job, paying regular taxes, all that part of a system. It was like, pooh, it was amazing. It really was amazing. But when you get into that situation where you are working with people in the education system in this country anyway, it can be quite a toxic environment because there is an expectation that you'll get to your desk dead early, you'll work all the hours that there is, and then you go home and you start again. you work again at night, and then before you know it, you're working. And then what I did, and I have apologized for this, and I always say you should never say you're sorry unless you've done something really wrong, but I have apologized I've apologized for the way I may have made people feel. I think because of the environment I was in, I ended up as a senior manager that was then having expectations of my direct reports. So I was expecting them to work ridiculous hours. I was expecting them to do things that when I look now, I think, whoa, hold on. No way should I have ever expected them to do all the hours that they were doing. I should never expected them to go home and work again. But I did, because that was the environment of the organisation that I worked in. So I was then raising the expectations for people that were above and beyond what they should do to manage their own work-life balance. And I apologised for that. I've apologised on many forums for that. And I'm quite an advocate now for people actually working the hours that they're paid. I think people should start at a reasonable time and finish at a reasonable time. And I was speaking to somebody the other day that said, actually, there is no thing as work-life balance, because you can't do a specific amount of time at this and a specific amount of time at that. And I agree. But all I go with is, if you put yourself first, then everybody around you benefits. So if you meet your own needs and make sure that your physical, intellectual, emotional, social needs are met before anybody else's, then everybody else around you will benefit from that. And I think that's more about life balance than work-life balance, because your work, for some people, it's a massive part of their life and it's really, really important. But when you live to work as opposed to work to live, it has a massively detrimental effect on yourself, on your mental wellness, and on your family. You miss out, don't you? You miss out. There's so many people that I know that have not gone to their children's school plays and sports days, and you miss out because you're always at work. And for women, it's quite difficult, because women do want it all, and you can have it all, but you just need to make sure that your boss always knows that your children come first, and that you will be going to do this, this, and this. I mean, I think about the things that I've missed with my children. I should have been there. I should have ever have not said, no, I'm not going to do that, and put work first. And I can't go back and change that. But I would like everybody, every woman that I know that's in the situation now, to be able to tell their boss, these are the days that I do this, and I'm going to go and do it. And if everybody knew from the word go, and you were living your truth and being honest, your boss would know, and it would be accepted. But we don't live our truth, do we? Because we fall in line with the values of the organisation that we work for.
Very impressive. Now, this is some mental conditioning. Now, I think you haven't lived a traditional life, right? You were never worried to fit in what society thinks you should do, right? I don't think that never worried you. And look what extraordinary life that you had as a result of not trying to fit in. You made your own life outside traditional, and that's what made you extraordinary. I think, on the other hand, people trying to fit in is what leads them to an average life. I think you don't have to follow the masses. You have to find your own direction, because it's only one. It's yours.
Yeah. So since you start to try and fit in, though, because that's what I did when I became a professional educator. I tried to fit in, and I tried to live that life, and in the end, I wasn't myself. I wasn't me.
Right.
And I wasn't being honest, and I wasn't being open, and I was just doing exactly what the organisation wanted me to do. And that's when you realise you're not living your truth, and you're not being honest with yourself. And we're not here long enough to be dishonest in general, but if you're being dishonest with yourself, the disservice is just not acceptable.
That was another key ingredient in your life, going through that to realize deeply in your heart that was not for you, and that's not you.
Yeah.
It's all about your identity. You found out that sometimes we don't know where we're going, but you know where you don't want to go after you try that way, right? Yeah. You try many ways, you knew they were not your ways, and that's how you eventually found your way. So I was talking about mental conditioning, all the things that you had to fix in your mind and with your environment to try to find your purpose. Let's say I was raised in an environment where, and thankfully now, where all I was taught it was lack. Nothing was enough. We didn't have enough of this. I couldn't have this, and that's what I believed in. A mentality of lack. And thanks to that, if I only stayed with that, who knows where I would be now. So all my family always also they lived by that kind of mentality. That was the normal, right? But I was different. And then I wanted abundance. I wanted a different life. And to do that, I had to recondition my mind to say, you know what? Now I know everything that I don't want as a point of reference to work on the opposite, right? By law of polarity. You know what you want, but you work on the opposite of what you don't want, right? So then I became all of a sudden abundant. You still get results of that mentality because you think you still, even if you want something different, you're still thinking with those beliefs until you can recondition yourself out of that, right? So I had to do that, and you don't even know my story as well. I changed everything. So I know you talk a lot about limiting beliefs. How important is that to grow in life? What can you say about that? About your own personal limiting beliefs? How do you get out of those? How
I
do you
mean,
help
yeah, I mean, what you've just said really resonates with me because you see, you said there was always a lack of everything, so there wasn't enough of everything. Now, when I think about it now, I'll always say that we were never poor and we never went without. But there was never an idea that was a lack of anything. I never went without anything. I think it was expectations. There wasn't an expectation that we had any more than we had. So I think limiting beliefs, so those are the beliefs that hold us back. They don't serve us and they have no place in moving us forward anyway in life. And they do definitely make a difference to the way you function and how you grow and develop. So I like to turn my limiting beliefs into positive facts and just try and flip them over. But throughout life, it would be the case of I'm not good enough. You know, I'm not clever enough was a massive one for me. You know, I'm not clever. I don't know anything. I don't know anything. And I really didn't know anything. I knew quite a lot of things, but I didn't know a lot of things that I know now. But it was I'm not clever enough. I'm not good enough. I was bullied a lot as a child. So if I did ever go to in an environment out of my own community, you used to get your hair pulled and get called smelly and you know all that kind of stuff. Get called a jipper and all that gives you that feeling of I'm different. So those limiting beliefs really do hold you back, and I think those limiting beliefs make you think that you have to do what everybody else thinks you need to do to fall in line with to actually get anywhere. But thinking that you're not clever enough and that you're not good enough may be the reason why I went so long before I got an education. It might be very well that because I wasn't clever enough and I wasn't good enough, that there were opportunities where I could have gone to learn to read and write, but I never saw them because those limiting beliefs held me back. And they really held me back for a long time. So I always did a manual job. All the time it was a manual job. You know, I used to carry big whelk sacks, 100-weight sacks, and it was quite a physical job, you know, going out early morning to go and buy fish, 4:00 in the morning, carrying things, pushing big trolley. It was a physical job. So it was all physical because I wasn't good enough and I wasn't clever enough. So then eventually when I did get the opportunity to go and learn, that made me realise that actually I am quite clever. I am good enough. I am worthwhile. I am valuable. And I can do fantastic things in the world. And then that gave me that confidence to be an academic. And I made a massive difference to people's lives when I was a professional educator. I have some of my students now that will contact me and say, I'm doing this and doing that. And if it wasn't for you, I wouldn't have done this. I wouldn't have done that. But it only goes so far. So limiting beliefs can go, you can get rid of them, but then they can come back. Because I got rid of my limiting beliefs and I became somebody, and I was learning and earning. And then all of a sudden, my confidence went, my self-esteem went. As I say, when I burnt out, everything sort of shriveled up. And again, I wasn't good enough. I wasn't clever enough because I'd become less good at the job that I was doing. And I wasn't able. So the limiting beliefs came back. So I had them when I was younger. I came all the way through, did really well, and then ended up in a toxic environment where they manifested themselves in another way. And I think that got me to thinking, because I was an entrepreneur when I was a child. If you think about it, I was self-employed. I worked for myself. I worked for myself for years. So then all of a sudden I've worked within the education system. And then that made me think, once I couldn't cope with that and I had to leave, what would I do next? I'm not going to be able to do it. And yet here I am now today, doing really well. So you can actually flip your limiting beliefs and turn them into positive facts. And in your 50s, you can start again because you've got plenty of time to have another career, plenty of time to do something else. So if there's people out there that are in their 50s now that are thinking, I'm too old, no way are you too old. You never know how long you've got left. But whatever you want to do, it's within your gift to actually have a go and do it, which is what I'm doing now. Living my truth, being myself, helping as many people as I can, and just following my core values. And that's what I'm doing.
Now, for those who just joined this call and are watching at this point, let me remind you, Lisa, aside with all the incredible stories, she started to read and write at 28 years old. That's something incredible that I haven't really seen that very often in my life. And that's incredible. And to become an educator afterwards, starting at 28 and becoming an educator and successful educator, that's some massive, massive change. And but what I see about you is that you don't seem the person that really focused on what was missing, that you didn't really focus on all the things you had to work on. You really worked on overriding all those things that you didn't want. You just went over the things. You started focusing on the things you really wanted to do, not things how to resolve these things that I'm lacking or that I don't have or that I'm bad at. You just decided to overwrite everything, and you overrode everything with your enthusiasm, with your energy, with your fire. You're eager to learn. So I think that's a very powerful system to not really focus on the things that you don't have, that you don't want, or what's missing. What should I do to become better? I think you have to focus better on what you want, and you automatically override everything that doesn't serve you, right? I don't think you focus on the negative at all.
Yeah, I always say I'm an injector of positivity, an igniter of motivation, and a spreader of happiness. That's what I say. Because I think if I ask people what they don't want or what they're not happy with, they can give me a massive list. If I ask them what they do want, they'll struggle. Yeah. People can always say what's not working, but if I say to them, what is it? What do you want? What do you want? They go, what's your biggest goal? What's your dreams? They'll go, They can't say what it is they really want, or they can't envisage something more for themselves. I always ignore the negativity, just knock negativity out the park, go for the positive all the time, and just think the worst that can happen is the worst that can happen. So be it. There is really no room for focusing on things that don't serve you well, because they're just not good for your mind. So when I burnt out, and I was completely and utterly burnt out, the first thing that they tried to do was give me medication. Now, I'm not saying that people shouldn't take medication, because it's everybody's personal choice. But for me, going down the medication route because of having an issue with drug abuse in my family, I'm like, no way, I'm not taking nothing. I'm not doing it. Whether you think it's a good idea or not, I'm not doing it, because in my head, I'm thinking I'm going to start taking stuff. I'm never going to be able to stop. So I'm just not doing it. So I wasn't having medication. So then it was like, well, should I go for counselling? So I've spoke to a counsellor. I've gone to self-help groups, mental wellness groups, and, talking therapy, etc., etc. And then I thought, you know what? I need to start researching this. I need to see what is it that's happened to me? What's happened? Why have I lost my confidence? Why am I not sleeping? Why did I get paranoid? Why couldn't I cope? What was it and what happened? And I realized that it was all inside of myself. I needed to really look into myself. And I started talking to I spoke to hundreds of other women in their 50s who came to a position where they almost became invisible in their lives because they'd given so much to everybody in their life, for their children, their families, their work, that they'd totally forgotten about themselves. And what happens is your self-esteem starts to deplete, but it's not important. And then as you start to feel your self-esteem deplete and it's not important, your confidence is completely lacking. And it's quite easy for you to shrivel up and become invisible and for you to not be happy. And there are lots of women that are not happy. So I started to look inside of myself, to say, talk to other people, and realised if I look at building my self-esteem, recognising my own positive self-concept by really managing myself and the way that I feel, and what I did to get my mental wellness back to a good position was a physical side of it was really important. So sleep, very important. I didn't sleep at all. I used to sleep intermittently. A few minutes I'd wake up. It was awful. So I was exhausted all the time. So getting a really good sleep pattern was really important for me, managing my sleep. Taking part in physical exercise. So I walk every day, but I started running, doing some park runs and half marathons. I got to that point for running. So walking, running, sleeping, eating the right foods, not just fueling myself with junk, that physical side of it. Then really looking at my intellectual stimulation and looking at how I was still intellectually developing. Was I learning new things? Was I reading about things? Was I embracing the opportunities intellectually? And then looking at the emotional side of it, was I emotionally stable? And could I accept the fact that sometimes you do feel tearful and that's normal, as opposed to feeling as if I'm a gibbering wreck and I can't cope? And being able to manage my emotions and have good emotional relationships with other people. And then the other part was the social side of it, making sure that my social situations were always positive interactions. So anybody within my life, and this is quite difficult, who is negative and gives you a negative vibe and is a bit of a downer, I had to actually say, unfortunately, I have no part for your negativity. So I can't have you as part of my social circle at this moment in time, because part of my mental wellness is about me having positivity and having positive interactions, and you're not bringing anything positive to the table. So I had to actually lose people from my social circle, people that I've been friends with for years, people in my family that I love, but I just couldn't have them bringing any negativity in my world. So when I'd done that, the physical side, the intellectual, the emotional, and the social was a massive side of it, getting rid of the negativity. That really helped me manage my mental wellness. And I did that without medication. I didn't take any medication. I went for I'm just going to do this. And that's what I did. And then when I'd worked on it, that's when I was talking to other women and people were saying to me, what are you doing? How are you doing it? What are you doing it? And then I started coaching, because I'd been a coach and a mentor as part of my role as a professional educator. And then I got into the neuro-linguistic programming, NLP, and I've done quite a lot of work with NLP, and that is a big basis of my work now. And looking at people using the submodalities and managing their mind and managing their mindset, because your brain is obedient. As you know, your brain will do as you tell it. Your brain will think as you want it to think. It's just getting yourself in that real positive mode and telling it the positive things that you want it to hear, and telling it the positive things that you want it to bring forward from your memories. And that's a big, big thing for me.
So I see most of your power lies on being able to focus on what you want. I think focus is the key of life. Wherever focus goes, energy flows. That means that you focus on something, you're going to produce more of the same, whether it's good or is bad. right? And most people tend to focus on the negative, on what they don't want, on what is not working out. And like you said, they have a long list of the things that are not working, and you ask them about the positives, and they don't even have a clue because you know where they live mentally and emotionally, and that's why they produce more circumstances of that nature. And I
Mm,
think part of your great success has been knowing how to manage that and
mm,
getting out of your life everything that doesn't align with that.
mm,
And sometimes I think, by my own experience, I think sometimes we do have to manually take people out that are really not aligned with us. And sometimes, or most of the times, it happens automatically. When you're at this level vibrating, automatically people that stay over here, you don't know of them anymore. When one day you said, oh, "What happened with this person? I never saw him again." Right? They automatically disappear because you're at another level already.
yeah.
So sometimes you don't even have to do the work. So
Mm.
in my case, when I see somebody that I want to be around of, that I see that's so fast growing, I'm trying to follow them, right? Not try to bring them down. Most people try to bring you down with them
Mm.
because they can resist the idea of having you leave them, right? That's the whole thing for them. They don't want you to leave. They don't want you to grow. And
Have you ever been a fixer though? Have you ever been a fixer where you feel that you can fix people? So when you get people that came into you that were quite negative, you thought, well, I'll do everything I can to really get them up there. It's exhausting. It's exhausting, isn't it? And a lot of people that I work with now do come from a unresourceful state, but I'm always coming to them from a resourceful state, and I'm always talking to them as if they've already met their goal. And I quickly have to build that rapport very quickly, because if I don't build a rapport quickly, I won't work with them. I only work with people that I can build a rapport with and work with, and people that recognize after that initial conversation that you are going to make them step up. They either step up or step off. But being a fixer, I mean, it's not my job as a coach to fix anybody. It's not my job as a coach to tell anybody what they've got to do. It's my job to question and for them to actually come up with the answers themselves. That's what it's all about for me. And that's what I do. I don't say if you do this, this, and this, you're going to get that. So what is it you want? How would you like to get there? And then it's using those creative questions to get them, actually to give them, enable them to find their truth and find their own power to be able to fuel themselves to move forward.
I think exceptional coaches like you know exactly to do what you're saying because all the answer you already know, they're already inside of you. Nobody comes and tells you what to do and they do it and they succeed. A good coach puts you and sits you down and asks you all the right questions that will get you to answer them. Say, oh yeah. And you will realize at that point that you had all the answers all the time. The things you didn't have the right questions, right? So you need a
Yeah.
coach to ask you the right questions. And then you say, oh, I understand now how this works. And then put them through the right path, right? So I think you do your job in an excellent way. I understand perfectly that. Now, um, let me ask you about, you talk about visualization, how important
Mm.
that is, and how can a person do to, because most people that I come across and I tell them about this, they say, I can't really visualize. But how do you manage to do that? Because and how important it is to set up your goals and what you want.
Yeah. Now, some people, right, and when I'm talking about using the submodalities, I'm talking about what you can see, what you can hear, what you can touch, what you can smell, and what you can taste. All right. Those are the five senses that we're working with. So when I say to somebody, we're going to work on visualizing something, okay, then it would be an expectation. They would close their eyes and I could talk to them and take them there. Now, some people, as you say, can't actually visualize anything because their brains don't work like that. So some people, you might say, right, take yourself to your favourite place. You might be lying on a beach. A lot of people could lie there, see themselves on the beach, hear the wind in the palm trees, smell the coconut, whatever. Yet some people can't do that. It's very difficult because they can't do it. So what you have to do with that is you'd have to say, right, can you remember a time when you did X, Y, and Z? So if they want to look at something about, say it's a confidence thing, They want to be able to visualize themselves in a really confident position, doing really, really well. They can go back and visit that. So when they go for a meeting, they can shut their eyes, feel it, and go into that meeting confident. All right. So if they can't visualize it just by me taking them there, I'll say to them, can you remember the last time you were really confident? And they might say, and I'll find out when it was. It might even be back in the day when they were at school, or it might be the time when they first rode a bike and they're absolutely fantastic because they rode that bike. And I'll get them to stop and just think about that situation when they rode that bike when they were a child. How did it feel? Where did you feel that pride? Can you remember the sound of your feet, of the pedals going round? What could you smell? Could you smell the tarmac as you went along on your bike? So they don't necessarily have to be able to see it in their mind's eye, but it could come from a memory. So they can visualize from what they can see if you are a visualizer, or you can do it from your memory. So if you want to visualize something around goal setting, what you would do is you would decide. So say your massive goal is a lot of people are money motivated, aren't they? So it might be the case of, I want to pay my mortgage off. All right. So somebody wants to be able to pay their mortgage off within a certain amount of time. That's their massive goal, pay their mortgage off. Massive goal. Then what they'll do is they'll set the actions up for them to be able to meet that goal. And the actions will be, say, save £1,000 a month, pay £1,000 a month extra on your mortgage every month, and however long that's going to take to pay your mortgage off. Now, to visualise the goal, they've got to decide how they're going to feel when they've paid the mortgage off. How is that going to make them feel? Now, if you really, really want something, you're going to be able to know what that feeling's like. If you can't visualise it, you'll remember when you had a great feeling before. But if you really, really want that goal, then that's the thing you're going to be able to focus. Well, there's no point setting goals that you don't really, really want, because you're never going to reach them, because it's not real, because it's not something you really want. But if you really want it, you're going to know how good that's going to make you feel. So from a visualization perspective, you will take yourself to a place where you can feel it, you can smell it, you can taste it, you can bring in scents, you can bring in taste, you can touch your favorite material or the sand in your toes, and get that fantastic feeling. And that's something that you can then connect to your goal. And every time you're thinking about reaching that goal, and if you feel as if you're on a blip, or you just want to inject yourself with a bit more positivity to make sure you still keep paying that £1,000 extra a month, you'll stop and you'll visualize that feeling. And when you visualize it and you're there, that keeps you going.
There's a lost passage in the Bible that explains actually that the real prayer in to manifest your prayer is actually not in the words, what you say. You can say all you want, but that's more of a fantasy. But it's in the feeling. Not really. You can pray without saying a word in your mind. It's just feeling the whole thing, and that's what's going to get things to get moving towards you. Actually, that's the whole key. Yeah, it's very powerful, and I wish people can understand this part. And especially if you do it, if you're going to do this, do it in the night when you go to sleep. So while you're falling asleep, you're inserting that into your subconscious, will hand out the task and manifest the connections, right? Is that the subconscious is not going to hand you exactly what you want. It's going to hand you the way to get to it. It's going to connect to everything. It's going to make you aware of the things that you need in order to connect to that. Now, what would you tell a person that comes to you and tells you, I have no idea what I want in life, I have no purpose? What do you tell a person like that?
Well, the thing that I'd do in the first instance was I'd get them to do something like a wheel of life, where they look at the different parts of their life. I don't know, it could be their personal life, their work life, their career, look at different aspects of their life and look on a scale from 1 to 10, 10 being the best, 1 being the worst. And then we'll pick an area, which is the area that's the least, that's going to have the biggest impact on them. And then talk them around that until they get to a position where they've decided what it is they want. Now, I'll often have people that will come to me that will say, that they're actually not happy in their job and they want to change job. They want to get another career. And I have a lot of people that will say this: hate my job and want to get a new job. All right. But when it actually boils down to it, it's not the job they hate. It's the fact that they've got the lack of confidence and they've actually not, they're not living the truth, and they can't say what they're going to say or do what they want to do as part of their work that's impacting the way they feel at work. So their initial goal will go from getting a new job to actually having the confidence to be able to speak up and say what they've got to say. That may end up being their initial goal. But then when they want to look at changing their career, they'll often look at progression outside of their organisation first. Whereas if they look at progression within inside their organisation, which often that's the route they'll end up going down, they'll get themselves in a position where they'll feel confident to go for a higher level job within the organisation they're in. And often they don't ever take that job because they end up, something else will happen. But because they've opened their eyes to be able to move forward, good things start to happen. So I will tell people that come to me and say that they don't know what it is that they want, to actually consider, just stop, forget about all the things you don't want, and just think about how you would like to feel. How would you like to feel in 12 months, 3 years or 5 years? How would you like to feel? And if you want to feel fulfilled and you want to feel confident, and a lot of it is all about feeling self-sufficient, feeling in control of your life, what would you need to do for that to happen?
That's an excellent point about a coaching question. The people comes without a purpose, and you tell them, instead of what do you want, obviously they don't know what they want, but you ask them, how do you want to feel in life? And that's a big key. Very good, excellent. Now, you told me that you help people, guide people to be the best they can. That's a very good phrase of yours. How do you do that? How do you help people unleash their sleeping potential? Is that about with the same question you just said?
Yeah, it's all about giving them a toolkit. I like to give people a toolkit, so a toolkit for them to be able to harness their confidence when they need it. That's so important, so that they harness their confidence at different levels at different times, for feeling confident with not being confident and being able to accept that. I think that's really, really important. Being able to use their motivation, their internal motivation, the passion that they have for things, or things that they didn't realise that they had, and to be able to motivate themselves by using their own personal discipline. Because I could say to you, I want to do X, Y, and Z today, but it doesn't mean I'm going to do it tomorrow unless I've got the discipline. And that's why it's so important that when you're choosing something to do, especially when you want to be the best you can be, that it's something you really want. Because there's no point in setting yourself up for something you don't really want, because it's not going to work. It's never going to work. People will say to me, oh, I want to lose weight. And I think, well, it just took you 15 years to put it on. You're not going to lose it in 15 weeks. Isn't it more about being happy with your skin and what you've got inside yourself, and being happy in your own skin? Is that not more important? Because once you recognise that, and you recognise, actually, this is who I am, often overeating and eating wrong foods will go out the window, because you'll be happier anyway, so you'll be doing other things. But focusing on this thing about, I want to lose all this weight, and they don't, because they don't really want to stop eating. But it's not the eating that's the issue, it's their self-esteem that's the issue. But people get hung up on things, don't they? They get hung up on things. So being the best you can be is all about having that toolkit for your confidence. It's all about being able to banish your limiting beliefs and turn them into positive facts. I'm a real big believer in affirmations. My affirmations are, I say them every day, and they set me in good stead. And I'll share them with you. Mine are: I make a positive difference to people's lives, I'm inspirational, and I'll never be skint, which means I'll never not have any money. And those three things I say every day, and I stand by them, because and it works for me. So So being the best you can be and living your truth is being able to put yourself first because everyone around you benefits. Being able to recognise it's okay to say no. No is a sentence. You should always be able to say no. Not having to be apologetic and say sorry unless you've done something really wrong. Because every time you say sorry for something, you put yourself in a position where you're feeling guilt. And guilt is a really negative emotion. That if you wrap yourself in guilt and feel that you've done something wrong, you are more than likely going to be dumbing down on yourself again and again and again. And being able to look yourself in the eye and just say, I'm fantastic. This is me. I'm clever. I'm beautiful. I've got a lot to give the world. And to really mean it. And that's what I teach people to do, to be themselves. I don't teach them, I coach them to be themselves.
How do you deal with people that come to you and have a lot of fears? Because fear stuff makes the lack of confidence, makes low self-esteem. I think fear controls a big assets of your life. But how do you deal with that? Have you personally dealt with fear?
I mean, doubt for me is very in line with fear.
They're like sisters, right?
Yeah. And doubt creates problems that it can't solve. And if you recognize that every bit of doubt, it creates problems that it doesn't solve. And doubt creates the problem. So without doubt, you don't have those problems. You cannot worry about everything you can't do something about. And that's a lot of what human beings do. They worry about things that can't do something about. And fear is unfounded. Fear is unfounded. So, I mean, I do phobia work as well. I used to have a real fear of rats, really bad. And I couldn't even say the word. I haven't got it anymore because I've got rid of it. But
now
fear...
You have a pet. Now you have a rat pet.
Wouldn't go that far, but I'm all right with them. But fear is something that fear is also very, it's a feeling as well. It's a feeling, and that feeling of fear is something that you have to banish it. You have to not be fearful. You have to not be fearful. Now, it's quite difficult when we've got fight or flight. We've got adrenaline in our body. So if something happens, you get that fight or flight adrenaline rush, and you're afraid. You have a feeling fear. It's a recognition of it. So it's a recognition of having a fear for a reason and having an unfounded fear. So if somebody comes to me and they're fearful of something, it more than likely is often about worried what other people are going to, they're frightened of what other people are going to think. They're frightened of how other people are going to view them. They're frightened about whether they're going to upset somebody else. It's very rare that somebody's actually frightened of anything specific that they can't banish. And it's always about other people. It's other people's perception.
I would love to know where fear comes from. I'm not sure if there's something common or something that it's for everybody. It's different, but it's the real factor that determines that you don't take action. Many people just don't. You met a lot of people that know exactly what they have to do and still don't do it. Do you think that's fear blocking them?
It's fear of the unknown often. So it's that stepping out of the comfort zone. So if you can get somebody to be comfortable with being uncomfortable, then you can overcome that. But the fear is often about the unknown. Like you'll have people that are in a relationship that they know is not good for them, but they're frightened to leave it because they don't know how it's going to be outside of it, even though they know it will be better. But they don't know actually whether it will be better because they've never actually done it before. So it's often a fear about trying things you've never tried before, even though you know that it might be a good thing to do. So when you're working with human beings and when you're a coach, you have to recognise the coachee is the person, they are the expert in their own life. They are the expert in their life, in their job, in their family, in their everything. They are the expert. So all you can do is actually get them to do some self-analysis on why they feel the way they feel. And you will find that often it goes back to the limiting beliefs. It'll go back to when they were a child, or something that happened when they were small, or somebody said something to them in the past. And if you can work on that, and change the memories around that, then that can have a big difference moving forward.
We should do a course for people and how to do and why to do self-analysis, because I think that one of the most difficult things is to get somebody to do a self-assessment. Say, you know what, every 3 months, I analyze myself and I write down what are the things that are working out, what are the things that don't work, because this is the most difficult part. Get people to do this. And if you don't do this, it's very difficult that you can really go to a place where you're going to feel good. I mean, we should explain people why this is important, and that you should get in a habit of doing self-analysis. And there, probably you can discover where the fears are coming from. Why are not you doing the things that you really know how to do? I suffer this a lot until I say, you know what? I gotta break that terror barrier. There's always a terror barrier to the things that you really want. There's always something that in the middle there, always in the middle, right there. I would be years ago be terrified to do this, like speaking in public or speaking with somebody in this kind of context, because there was something I didn't know what it was. And then I said, but why do I have this? I'm stubborn saying I want to do this now, but I was saying, why are you pushing yourself to do something you're feeling comfortable? And then I was saying inside, there's something here for me. I don't know what it is. But then I had to do Toastmasters, and I had to do things in record time, push myself like I never did before. I had these goals, say, I'm going to do these things no matter what. And people usually cancel. I said, I'm never going to cancel all the speeches that I have to give. And I did it in world record time. And that was a way that, because I was interested in the person I was going to become after I did all this pushing. So I think if we can get people to do this, they're going to discover a whole new person behind this. You're going to say, where was this hiding all these years? But I think you're good at that. I think you inspire people to do this, because your story itself inspires. What rewards you the most as a coach?
What does what, sorry?
What rewards you the most as a coach?
When the coachee actually not necessarily reaches their goal, but when they actually realize and the light bulb goes on that actually things are possible. It's the coachee recognizing the possibilities. That's what rewards me the most. The fact that they go, yes, do you know what? I know that I can do this. I know that I can make a difference. I know that I'm going to see the changes. And I love the final sessions as well. See, counsellors will often have somebody going in for counselling year on year, whereas a coach, it can be as quick as a couple of sessions, or, I don't have people on forever and a day. I like them to set the goal, and I love it when they come to the end and they're off and they know that they're on their way. I think that's fantastic. And people have grown and they've developed.
When they come and tell you, because of you, I did this.
Yeah. Well, yeah, but I always say to them, they've done it. It's not, I'm a conduit, I'm a facilitator. I'm facilitating their opportunity to be resourceful. That's my job, to enable them to find their resourcefulness and be resourceful. It's not about me, it's about them. I enable them to create their own tools. I get them to work that, to build their own anchors, all the other things that they do. I facilitate it. They could do it with anybody. They just choose to do it with me. And if they do it with me, they do it really well. That's the way it is. But it's the coachee that does it.
You're totally right. Now we're going to start wrapping it up. So I'm going to be asking you a couple more questions. Now tell me, why should people reach out to you specifically? What can you help them with specifically?
I think I can specifically help them with being able to recognise, be able to set their goal, their realistic goal for the future, to be able to recognise, identify the goal, set that goal, and really lay it out and get the stages in place for them to be able to reach will start being the best they can be and living their truth. That's the key thing for me. And it's about helping them to build the confidence, raise the self-esteem, and recognize that you can be who you want to be when you want to be it. It's all in your gift. It's in your gift.
Yes, it is. Now, what have we learned today with Liza? Let me get some key points that I took in here. I took here. I think you enhance the power of focus and focusing with what's right instead of what's wrong. That's very powerful. That's the way you can align your life towards the right direction, actually. If you focus on the right thing and stop focusing in what you don't have, in the direction you don't want, right? We learn about self-assessment, how important it is to know where you are. Because knowing where you are, then it gives you the keys to know how to get where you want to get, right? How important it is to sleep, to connect, to let your subconscious take over and make the healing and the connections. Let's say you see sometimes when you're trying to remember a song, you say, man, I can't remember this song. I have it on the tip of my tongue. You can't remember. You just say, okay, we let it go, right? And then in 3 weeks, boom, the song comes through. Why? Because you gave the task, emotional task, saying, what was the name of the song, right? So your subconscious is still working while you think is not, right?
Yeah.
So this is how important it is to sleep well so the mind can work for all these tasks you're giving it, right? Do what you have to do. You have to do the work, the hard work. You have to do an emotional self-evaluation to see what is your real emotional, your EQ capacity, your emotional intelligence capacity, which is very important. I learned from you to connect with others more than the intellectual mind is more important, probably the emotional mind, right? The sacrifices that you have to do to get where you want, including all those people that you should sacrifice that are not aligned with what you want for your good and for their own good. Probably they're not aligned right now and it's not their moment right now, right? And how important it is to visualize to get what you want. You can't just get to places randomly. Do you live a random life? You can't live a random life, right? You have to know where you want to go and then eventually you'll get there. But if you don't know where that is, you'll end up anywhere, like a ship without a rudder. You'll end up in any rocks in any city, right? And you have to feel it. If you're going to ask, visualize, you have to feel it and live it in order to attract it, right? Now, can you tell me a little bit about the 5-day challenge you mentioned before? You have a 5-day challenge. What is that about?
Yeah, I'm doing a 5-day challenge, be the best you can be. So I think I gave you the link. I don't know whether I did give you the link actually.
I'm gonna post something here, but tell me about it first.
Yeah, so the 5-day challenge, I did one. It's only the second one I've done. The very, very first one that I did just before Christmas. So what I do is I do it on Facebook. It's in a Facebook group. And every morning, so it'll be UK time, so it'll be early morning your time. I post a video, okay, a video with a task and a workbook. So it'll be a simple task. It's nothing too overarching, but a simple task that they'll do first thing in the morning, 10, 20 minutes maximum, depending how much time you want to give to it. And they'll do the task. And then there'll be an opportunity to go in the group and post to ask me anything. And they'll put the questions in that I will use then to base for the live on the evening. And then every evening, which will be this time in your time, so it'll be afternoon, I do a live. And on that live, I will ask all the questions, answer the questions that have been asked, and then actually do some online coaching. Really, that's what I do. And it's over 5 days. As I say, there's a workbook which is it's a journal, so you have your own journal at the end of it. So you've completed a journal, and it's just a really accelerated. There's a lot going on in the 5 days. A lot going on. It's called the Be the Best You Can Be. It's all about actually being able to go from lots of people come on feeling quite flat, not as confident as they could be, to really boosting it to the end of the week, feeling quite confident and actually believing that they can do things that they couldn't do before.
Wow, I can imagine if this 1 hour and a half conversation has been incredibly empowering. Imagine what you can get out of 5 days with Liza. Now, you want to reach her out. Here's her email. I hope I spelled it correctly.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, you can send her a message and reach out to her, ask her any questions you have or for consultations. And here's a link right here. You want to get a screenshot or send her a message directly to join the group in order to join this 5-day challenge, which is free. I understand, right?
Yeah, it's free. Oh, it's free, and I'm doing it. Obviously, I'll be honest with you. There will be an opportunity for people to sign up to work with me at the end of it, but there's no obligation.
Right.
It's not a big sales pitch. It's about me giving as much value for 5 days as I possibly can to make the biggest difference to people as I possibly can, and that's what I'm doing it for. Lots of people decide they will work with me, but you will get a lot out of that 5 days.
Guys, I wouldn't want to miss this. Just please reach out. And when does it start again? What date?
25th of January.
January 25th. Okay.
Yeah.
And what's the time, or it's at any time?
It's it'll be all in the Facebook group. So if you can't watch it, you can watch it on replay.
Okay.
So yeah. So it's live 2 p.m. your time on the evening. And the videos go in the group and the early hours here, so it'll be even like in the middle of the night your time.
Got it. Okay, here's the link, guys. And one last question to close.
Mm-hmm.
How should we face this new year, Lisa? A very unique new year where this may be one of the most anticipated new years in humankind history. And you happen to be our very first special guest of this unique year that was very anticipated. Tell us something we want to hear to make us feel good about a Kickstarter of the very incredible year ahead of us. Tell us something empowering.
So what has happened, you can't change. You cannot change what has happened, right? Tomorrow never comes. It's all about today. So for me, it's about doing what you can today to put yourself in a position every day to be the best you can be. And the way you do that is by kicking negativity to the curb, and everything that comes towards you, look at the positive side of it. Even the worst things that happen, there's always something positive about it. And finally, just remember, whatever's happened to you in the past, you've got through it. You've got through it, guys. You've got through worse than this before, and you'll get through it again.
Thank you, Lisa. As she said, don't focus on what you cannot control, because that is what gives you stress, and you don't want stress. Thank you very much, Lisa. It has been a blessing to be with you, to know you. I know there are going to be much more further connections between you and I. We can do many things together.
Yeah, I'll come in the group as well. I'll come and talk in the group. I'll come and do some posts in the group. Yes, please. Thank you very much, Lisa. Have a beautiful 2021. Looking forward to it with you. Take care. Bye, everybody. Bye, bye, bye.